Welcome to 2Cents FC. I'm your host, L. Johnson. Our guy Amobi isn't here today. He had a late practice, so I'm running this one solo. So as you know, each week we'll be talking to individuals around the soccer world, learning about their stories and getting their unfiltered thoughts and opinions. So this week we have NISA Commissioner John Prutch. Did I say that right?
You got it.
Prutch? Definitely. Okay.
Yep.
And so obviously we'll be talking about NISA, including the Legends Cup, their growth initiatives, expansion teams, and more. And we'll also be saluting Desiree Ellis for Black Soccer History. So we don't have Amobi here this week, but we obviously play a game at the beginning of the show called Two Truths in the Cap. So this is a rapid fire, kind of a nice icebreaker game that we like to play, where you'll tell us 3 facts about yourself. 2 will be true, 1 will be a lie, and usually Amobi and I would guess, but I guess I'll be the one guessing this week. So whenever you're ready,
I'll make it easy on you. Okay.
Thank you.
First off, I have 3 children. Second, I have an MBA. And third, I'm from Dubuque, Iowa.
I'll say Iowa is the lie.
No, I don't have an MBA. Oh, well.
Okay. Well, hey, I can't win them all.
No, that's right. Every now and then in an interview, I'll make a statement like, in an open system, community like Dubuque, Iowa can even have a professional team. So anyway.
All right, cool.
I haven't been there in a long, long time. But
okay. I hear Iowa's a lovely place.
It is.
It can be. Corn out there? Or
yeah, there is a lot of corn. Yes, I would agree with that.
All right, nice. So one question we like to ask each of our guests every week is, when did you fall in love with soccer?
So I fell in love with soccer when my kids were growing up in the 90s. And I decided to be, my wife signed me up to be a coach, right? And that's the typical story of how most people get into the game. And before I knew it, I was coaching and didn't know what I was doing. I learned the game, fell in love with the game. And as the kids got older, started coaching travel, took them all over the country, and, had a lot of fun with it. Really loved it. Then, as the kids got off to college, I was very active in investment banking and doing turnarounds. And one of the turnarounds I did was Umbro USA. Actually, the whole Umbro International as well. But Umbro USA owned a piece of USL back in the day. And so as a result of that experience, I was on the board of USL for a bit. And that was in the late 90s. And that's when I got a kind of a peek under the tent of how the world was being run in soccer. And to say that there was some things were lacking would be an understatement. So I went about my business, and then we did some work in the soccer world. We did, as an organization at Club 9, we did work with Sheffield Wednesday. We did the Glasgow Rangers deal when they were in bankruptcy, or administration, as they call it over there. And some other stuff in the States. We've done a couple of MLS deals. And then we were working with the NASL, towards the end of their existence. And so Peter Wilt and his partner Jack Cummins approached me about, they were old friends, about advising them on doing NISA. And that's how this process started. And so I was absolutely all in, committed to the fact that this country needs an open system versus the closed systems that we're used to. So as you probably know, about a year into that process, Jack passed away suddenly, and then shortly thereafter, Peter was made an offer he couldn't say no to, and went to Forward Madison. And so NISA it was languishing. So we made a decision as a firm. What do we want to do? So we picked up the baton and started running with it, and put together the original sanctioning package. And then a few months later, I was concerned, as were a number of board members, with the initial direction it was being taken. And so it's like the old saying, if you don't like the way your community's being run, then run for mayor. So lo and behold, soon, found myself in a position where I had to give up my responsibilities at Club 9 and take over as commissioner. And that was, oh my gosh, it'll be 2 years in June. So it's, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a little bit of the story. Yeah.
So you mentioned investment banking and also working with a lot of sports teams. Can you give us a kind of a window of how that looks, like what that process is like from like the investment banking side?
Yeah, let me use, we represented a bid for the Marlins a couple years ago when Derek Jeter won the bid, and we were on the other side representing the Romney family and a number of other investors, and finished second. The process is rather grueling, especially with large transactions like that, because no one writes out a check for 1.2 billion. So you have to circle up the investors, you have to put together the debt, you have to negotiate. I mean, it's just lawyers up everywhere you can think of. So it's a difficult process, and so, but it's a game that I love to play, and but it's all about negotiations and leverage and capital, and so it has its moments. It's fun, but it's very, very stressful business. And by the way, and so we have worked in baseball as well. I didn't mention that, but we've done a couple transactions with the Yankees. And then of course the Marlins transaction, which didn't come together, but we spent 15 months on it. It was a lot of work. So by the way, I'll tell you that I think my investment banking background actually is a benefit to what we are doing here. This is not easy, but it's also worth it. But getting through the pandemic was very stressful financially for our clubs. All of our owners were feeling the pain in their other businesses, and so it took some creativity and a lot of dedication by our owners to get through it. And I think the fact that I have that background helped because I was used to high stress situations and working with investors to get through situations like that. So.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, having that background definitely should have at least made the process a little bit smoother when it came to dealing with the clubs. And like, I'm sure there was also advice that you could give the clubs from like a financially solvent position. Yeah. So I think that's a really strong kind of background to have as a commissioner of the league.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that's the case. I do think it's got its benefits. The other thing is it's really, it's easy to call bullshit, if you will, right? If someone is trying to get into the league and they, you just don't pass the smell test, right? So yeah. I think it's, so I do think it's a benefit. I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to that. Definitely have some questions about what it takes to get into the league, what that process is like. But before we get there, you mentioned, applying with the federation, for a spot. How has working with U.S. Soccer been, as NISA, as kind of like having this independent model versus a franchise model, which is what everyone's used to? Do you feel like you've received the same level of support as maybe like a USL?
So that's an interesting question there. I would say that the people we deal directly with are very supportive. I think there's a lot of politics in soccer in this country at every level, at the youth level, the adult level, the pro level. A lot of turf wars, which is unfortunate. I think on the independent side, the closed system really kind of figured the independent side would never figure itself out because they kind of eat each other, right?
Yeah.
And so and it's very true. It's very political, and so the initial sanctioning was a process. Continues to be a process for us. I think when we get to a tipping point of maybe 15 clubs, that the pressure will let up a bit. But when I first got in, that first season, it was like, okay, I got here in June and we're starting in August, and we weren't ready as a league. We had a couple clubs stumble.
Mm-hmm.
The most notable one was Philadelphia. And so I was had to negotiate contracts mid-season with their players, which is never a pleasant process, and then trying to make arrangements for them to get looks at in other clubs. And so that hurt us in the eyes of U.S. soccer, and rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
And so our job is to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And if you think it's going to happen, you don't let the club on the pitch, or you do something about it. And that's what's happened with Stumptown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stumptown was we believe in that market. Their owner had some struggles as a result of the pandemic, and we didn't feel that they were ready to take the pitch. And so we did what I think needed to be done, which was say, okay, let's start fresh here. And we're supporting that market. And I think we made some decisions on who should be there in key positions. And so far, I'm very pleased. We'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks here on the pitch. I have a lot of faith in Rod. He just hasn't had a lot of time yet, but it'll be okay. But it was the right decision, because had we allowed them to take the pitch the way they were, there was a fairly significant chance they weren't going to make it through. So why go through that, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think my background helped a little bit on that. I mean, I'm not loved necessarily by everybody because of some of those decisions, but you have to do what's in the best interest of the whole. And our best interest was to save that market, because we think that market, the Matthews specific market, is a great market. And with all due respect to the independents, they're going to move, and they're struggling on their own with other issues. And so it was perfect time for us to keep our commitment to that market.
Yeah, for sure. So can you kind of share with us what that looks like? So does the league own Stumptown, or are they
Correct.
kind of okay? So it's kind of a custodian
It
of the
is.
team until we can find a new owner.
That is correct, and we're currently in discussions with investors to take that club over, and I fully anticipate that that'll happen sometime in the next 3-4 months, and they'll be on solid footing. And the biggest thing was making sure that when an investor looked at that club, it was more than just a market or an idea. There was actually some substance there. And Fred and Carrie and Rod, that's what they're bringing, is substance and organization, right? Something that an investor or investor group can build upon. And so that was important to us, that we just not save it, but we save it in the right way.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So that's a perfect segue when it comes to clubs joining the league. What are the requirements? What are the fees, if you can share that?
Sure.
Like what's the process like for a team wanting to join NISA?
So every club has to adhere to pro league standards that are put up by U.S. Soccer. And for our level of men's professional, $10 million net worth, and a number of other things. But that's the big initial hurdle that a primary team owner has to get over.
Mm-hmm.
I will just comment now that we're the only country in the world where 100% owned fan-owned club like a Barcelona or a club that's owned by a foundation could never be a professional club in this country because of those standards. And so it's I understand why they're there, because there were so many failures in the past that they had to have some standards that they thought people could live up to. But at the end of the day, the league knows, I know, which teams are going to be there for a long period of time and which ones aren't. And it doesn't matter the size of someone's pocketbook, right? I mean, a billionaire could own a club and walk away from it, and that's happened in USL this year. So but anyway, I'm off subject. But the primary hurdle for an investor is the $10 million, and then being able to convince our board that they have a business plan and a operational structure that has a chance of being successful.
Okay. So you said net worth 10 million, a solid business plan.
Yep.
Are there any like initial fees that they need to have coming in, like this of that $10 million valuation? Do they need to have like X amount down to be able to buy in,
Well,
or how does that work?
so it's fairly public that USL charges a fairly significant franchise fee. All we do is I just require that I personally get $1 million. I'm joking about that. We don't we don't charge fees for like that. What we do is we give the teams buy a membership in our league. We're an LLC, and they buy a membership in our league. Okay. And we would much rather have them spend millions of dollars on their club and in their community than invest it in buying a piece of the league. So everything's it changes the amount, but it's a fraction of what USL charges for a championship club.
Got it. Okay. And so to that point, you mentioned like getting the 15 teams to kind of get U.S. soccer off your back a little bit. There's been announcements. There's been rumblings and announcements of expansion. Bay Cities FC just announced today their intent to file an application for NISA. We've heard about Atlanta as well as Providence from other podcasts.
Right.
So, what markets? I don't know if you can say, but in terms of expansion and growth, what are some key markets that NISA doesn't have filled yet that you would like to see filled?
Well, there were 2 markets that left NISA, and we're pretty intent on replacing those markets. Okay. So we named one today. You can probably guess the other one. And then I won't be specific about where the markets are, other than to say there are a couple in the East. Let me think here. A couple in the East, and let's see. Hang on a second. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, I think we're going to end up with 3 announcements in the East, and I think that 4 announcements in the East in the next 30 days. So they'll be kind of spread along the East Coast. The West Coast one, by the way, in the Bay Area, was a big one for us. They have a very good academy. They're a really solid club. I think they're going to have tremendous success there. They're in a great location, right? Yeah. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah,
and we need to populate the West a little bit more. So it's great.
Yeah, I'm a Bay Area native. I live in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, but I'm a Bay Area native. So I was happy to see, some teams, joining the fold over there as well. So to that point, though, you mentioned needing to populate the West a little bit more, new teams coming in the East. What about same market teams? So, for example, say if Atlanta comes in and say there's another Atlanta team that wants to come in, are there territorial rights that, will restrict that type of thing, or do you guys promote that, inner city competition, so to speak?
Yeah, so I would tell you, as part of the open system, you want derbies, right? You want,
Yeah.
multiple clubs in the same community if you can, right? Without, really hurting the other club. But boy, you look at the rivalry, if you will, that's being developed between Michigan Stars and Detroit City. It's pretty intense, but it's great, right? I mean, it's great for the sport. So yes, we're all about that. LA and Cal United are not that far apart. So we really like that. We have two clubs in New York, and so we'll do that whenever we can. It just makes sense for us. It re-emphasizes what the open system is about. On top of everybody thinks of ProRel, right?
Yeah.
And we had an announcement last week with EPSL and put together an entire ProRel structure through numerous organizations up to NISA Nation. And I think at some point that's for us exciting. And I think if we can do that at the professional level, we'll do that, right? We have a ways to go and getting all that worked out with US Soccer, but that would be great to do, right? So that every game means something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually going to be my next question. Thinking about those lower leagues and NISA Nation, um, that path from a development league into NISA Pro,
Right.
what that would look like. And you just kind of answered it, with the pro rail structure. Um, One question with that though, like if a team gets, promoted to NISA Pro, but they may not have the net worth requirement.
Right.
How does that look? Do they have to stay where they are there some other
Yeah, so
concessions?
so let's deal with it like we have our existing pro league, and then maybe someday we have a Division 2 pro league, right?
Hmm.
And so somebody has a $10 million net worth, but the qualifications for Division 2 are 20 million.
Hmm.
So you could easily see someone not being able to move up. That's what we have to work through. We would rather not tell someone, hey, well, congratulations, you got promoted, but you can't move up, right? So that's our job to get that done and negotiated with US Soccer. And that's going to take a bit. It's going to take some time because they're just not built for the open system. They're built for the closed system. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Okay. So I'm kind of switch gears here a little bit.
That's all right.
With your investment banking background, having worked with teams in administration and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
we recently saw Ron Burkle pull out of the Sacramento MLS
Oh,
bid due to business impacts from COVID. Um, is this that can't be a good sign for MLS in terms of like, do we think because of the valuations and the high franchise fees, like could we be seeing a bubble on that level? And then how has the pandemic affected NISA's growth? Like, it's kind of a two-sided question, but
yeah. Well, let me deal with the valuation issue first. I think
okay.
I'm not inside MLS, so this is all speculation from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
325 seems to me to be a fairly high false bottom, right? That could burst, and I know a lot of valuation for them comes from their marketing arm, which has been very successful. And I would say that Don Garber and his team have been very successful at the growth. He did a great job of saving that league some years ago. But it's hard to maintain that value, I think, right?
Yeah.
Um, because traditional valuations driven by a lot of things other than just what the next franchise sells for. It's driven by revenues or profits or things like that, and it's fairly standard across the world. Sports teams are valued on a multiple of revenues, depending upon how high they are or where they sit. Like whether it's baseball or football or soccer, it doesn't matter. So it's, is it a bubble? I don't know. I think it's unfortunate that happened. I think Sacramento's a great market. Sac Republic has had a lot of success. It was really, really unfortunate for MLS and for the game that would happen, and be so public about, that issue being so public, and him pulling out. But those things happen. Investors go through, moments where they say, no mas, right? And so I get that, but it's truly unfortunate that they couldn't fix it before it got to that point.
Yeah, definitely. And so so what if MLS if the bubble does pop on MLS, how do you see that affecting the rest of the pyramid?
So I think if I had a crystal ball, I would say that MLS is going to be fine. I know that there's speculation out there, and Infantino even made a comment about, if they did a merger with Mexico, they'd probably agree to it. MLS, we can't worry about MLS and what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to build an open system within the independent structure, which if you take out, say, 30 MLS clubs, and you take out, I don't know how many professional clubs USL has between League One and League Two. Now they lost a few, so maybe it's 40. I don't know. So now you're at 70 clubs in this country, and a lot of them are in same city, like two MLS clubs in LA, two in New York, and so there's hardly any communities that are represented in that group. And so the open system can control this country and the development of soccer in this country if we do it right, because the opportunity is so massive. Excuse me. So so if Dubuque, Iowa has a professional team, as an example, how many cities are like Chattanooga, right? Or
Yeah.
I mean, and so and if you build that system the right way, so that players have a true path to pro, and through a youth club and an academy and amateur and into a NISA professional level, and that clubs have that same opportunity, that is a system that 5 years from now is going to dominate the landscape of the United States.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask, as we're talking about the pyramid and NISA's plans for Pro Rail, what's the max for NISA Pro, like the max amount of teams that you guys will expand to before you kind of?
Yeah, the board really hasn't made that decision yet, but I think if we get to 20, we have to start thinking about another level, a professional level. I don't think, we're a Division III level, if you will, with U.S. Soccer right now. I'm not sure that if you're a true open system, that you can only have one professional level, but who knows? We'll see.
Okay. So what does the next 5 years for NISA look like? What's the grand vision for like the roadmap, so to speak?
Yeah, so I made a comment a couple of weeks ago on a podcast that we always have a 5-year plan, and we get up every day and we kind of measure ourselves against that. And so if I look out 5 years, I'm saying that the pyramid is pretty large. Right now, we probably have 350 amateur clubs as part of our foundation through our affiliations. I think that number could probably be, 500 plus, maybe 600. I think we could end up with NISSAN Nation, which is our full year amateur league, having 8 regions, 8 to 10 teams per region, and a Division II and a Division III professional levels. And if we can get that done over the course of the next 5 years, holy cow! I mean, think about the development of the game for players, right? And the opportunities that exist as a result. And if we can do this right, there will never be, we'll start having an impact on the national team scene. And there will never be a reason for the U.S. not to qualify. So I think But that's, there's a lot between here and there, and those are big visions and big goals,
Yeah.
but I think we can get there.
Yeah. And so you mentioned NISA Nation and its kind of
Mm.
network. Through expanding and growing that network, with partnerships, do you guys see those leagues eventually rebranding under NISA or acquiring through acquisition or growing through acquisition?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they're independent,
Mhm.
and we have an affiliation board, so that they have a voice. I don't see the need for NISA to control everything. I see NISA being the architect here and controlling the higher levels,
Yeah.
but I don't see us trying to control everyone.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about the Legends Cup.
Mm.
Um, So tournament, preseason tournament we have going on right now in Chattanooga. Um, we had a pretty successful tournament last year
Yeah,
in
we
the
did.
bubble in Detroit. Detroit
Mhm.
City came out the winners there. How do you envision, or do you envision this being an annual preseason event, or is this just something to kind of get started for this year?
So let me make one correction. It really isn't preseason. Our season is broken into two pieces. One is the tournament, and the other is the home and away portion. So
Got it.
um, no, I don't. I think the reason we called this the Legends Cup, is to honor our players. We had a tournament in the fall, and now a tournament here in the spring. I'm not sure we're going to be able to ever do this again. We might be able to do a preseason, small tournament, but the tournaments get a lot of exposure. But in a true open system, what we want to do is a single table.
Hmm.
And if we have, let's say, 20 clubs or 17 clubs or 25 clubs, a single table through the course of two seasons, spring and fall and spring, that's about all you can do, right? I mean, there's not much time there for another tournament.
Yeah.
That said, you could do a tournament in midwinter if you wanted to when we're down, maybe in Florida or something like that. But we haven't gotten there yet. But so understanding that this might be our last tournament like this, we decided that to honor the players. So, as you know, legends can be made over the course of a career or in a year, or in a game, in a
Hmm.
moment, right? I mean, we had a couple of those moments, right? Marcano scoring the bicycle kick was a pretty spectacular first goal ever as a pro. It was pretty special. And so our way of honoring these guys is saying, okay, let's go make some legends here, right? And this is all about you. And the players have really they've taken the bit. I mean, to say they were excited to get on the pitch is an understatement. And I think the first day we had some good matches, or a little bit of nerves you could see, and but the quality was pretty good. It was fairly open. All three games were fairly open. Chattanooga made a couple of adjustments after LA scored, and wow, a couple of individual plays that were unbelievable. And so I'm really pleased. I think as the tournament goes, this is a very unforgiving format, which is fortunate because the intensity is there. Everybody
Yeah.
understands it's do or die. But it's also, if you misstep in that first round, it can be difficult to get your way back. And so,
Yeah.
so it's going to be exciting. The next few rounds are going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to, let's say, I guess tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow we have three games, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, most definitely. And you mentioned that these tournaments have been great for exposure. And
Mhm.
one thing that's helped that is you guys' partnership with BN. So how important
Yeah.
has that been to the leagues, making the league accessible to people who are out of market?
This is it really is very important. We had together with them a very successful fall campaign. The tournament, and um, they were convinced that we outperformed what I thought we would do and what they thought we would do, and people would love the style of the game that we play, and so right as soon as the tournament got over, we had a conversation about extending that for the spring. So the intent is to get through the spring and then negotiate a longer term deal. But it is nice being on Bean. I think the announcers the other day did a great job. They came in, rehearsed, and they understand who the players are and the clubs are, and what's important for us. That they don't say franchise, they say club, those types of things. But I think but there is going to be a long-term relationship with Bean. I anticipate that. Now we'll see. But yeah, we're very pleased with the relationship so far.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that broadcast deal can do wonders for not only exposing the league to lots of people, but also kind of legitimizing it to a degree. You have
Yeah.
your franchise purists out there who may not recognize NISA because it's not under the typical system, but having that backing from a major broadcast corporation and being able to put them on similar levels as USL and MLS from an exposure point of view, I think is paramount.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it gave in the fall, it gave us some credibility. It surprised some people. And then I think the quality of the broadcast surprised more people. And it kind of reinforced for the general public what we've been saying is we have our true believers in what we're doing, but our job is to spread the gospel, if you will, and Bean is helping us do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. The league also recently made another big announcement. They announced an equity committee. So this
Mm,
committee
mm,
features players, coaches, and owners from across the league. So can you share what birthed this committee and some of its initiatives?
sure. This was something that we announced in the fall that we were going to do, and I will say that Steve and Samantha from our shop did a really good job of pulling this together. This is very important to me personally and very important to the league and to the clubs. And I will tell you that this is a massive issue worldwide, but it's a massive issue here in the United States. And NISA is just a small piece of the global soccer world, but soccer is the most popular game in the world. So if there's any one game that can maybe change the hearts and minds of people, it's soccer. And so our initial task at hand is to create a safe environment for our players, coaches, and staff. So when they go to work, they don't have to worry about this nonsense that's out there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and the idea of hate speech on social media or threatening someone's life because they missed a penalty, to me is absurd. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that it even exists. And kudos to Swansea for what they're doing and calling attention to the effect of social media. And I'm going to take it one step further, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but social media, Facebook and Twitter can stop this. It's and I don't want to get political, but I just want to state a fact. If they can stop a sitting president because of hate speech, they can stop some guy sitting in his basement that's typing something on a keyboard. And for the life of me, I don't know why Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg just don't put an end to it. The idea of that hate speech is part of freedom of speech is nonsense. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we have to do is stop it, right? And then we have to educate, and then we have to change the hearts and minds. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I think our committee is going to help guide me and the owners and the league to create a safe environment for our players, coaches, and staff, and initially, and then we'll take it from there. But for me, that's paramount. Our players have to feel comfortable when they take the pitch, that a mistake's not going to cost them. something other than maybe a game. So and I think the task force or the committee is prepared to do that. As you mentioned, we have owners, players, coaches, staff from the league, staff from clubs on that committee. And when they sit around that table, and I talked to them the other night at the meeting, they're all equal. It doesn't matter. And so they all have an equal voice. And so, um, we'll see what happens, but I'm cautiously optimistic that, and like I told them, we're here to walk the walk. We're not here to talk the talk. Everybody talks the talk. And so we're hoping that we can walk the walk. It's difficult, and there are going to be decisions made that are very difficult as we go through time. Um, but but I think with the support of the committee, I think the board will be able to, and I will be able to make some of those difficult decisions.
Yeah, respect. Yeah, I think one thing that has really drawn me to the league is its diversity. So
Mm,
me being able to see, a black owner or black coach and that being championed is something. It's a breath of fresh air, honestly. And so to that point, what are some initiatives that NISA is taking in the local communities, whether partnering with the clubs in those communities to kind of increase the game, increase awareness, as well as accessibility to the game for
yeah.
underserved and minority groups?
Yeah, I think that's really something that each club should address. I think,
Hmm.
if you had Peter Wilt here, he'd be telling you what they're doing in Chicago, and so forth, because they are a lot more familiar with their markets and what they're actually doing. But I will tell you that um, from a league, we have a directive to our clubs to expand the pool of people that they would hire,
Hmm.
or people that are their partners in business. So we're attempting to do that at the league office as well. I think we had a chance to do that when we took over Stumptown, and we said okay. And by the way, Rod was hired because he was the best candidate. It's shocking to me that he didn't get a chance to coach a professional club in the MLS. I mean,
Yeah.
or USL Championship. I'm shocked. He's such a quality guy, and he really knows what he's doing, and he knows how to handle young men that are under pressure, and he's been a pleasure to work with. And so I've really enjoyed that. And naming Carey as director of operations there sent another message, right? I mean,
Hmm.
come on, everybody, step up, right? I mean, so we'll see. Well, maybe NISA can help lead the other professional leagues into making some decisions that they should have been making all along.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of want to stay in that vein a little bit as well.
Okay.
We've had Rod on the show a couple weeks ago, and he talked about how exorbitant the licensing fees are for to become a coach, the coaching licensing fees.
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
anything that the league is doing, or any initiatives that the league may be, I guess, working on to kind of help in that regard to help kind of build the licensing
Yeah.
levels for their coaches?
Yeah. There's a lot on our to-do list. I think um, we've got a lot of fish to fry right now. That is on our list to take care of. I will be honest and say we haven't gotten there yet, but yes, it is, because we need to make the ability. We need to make licensing available to more coaches than there are out there right now, and that new process that they have is unfortunately very expensive.
Yeah. All right. Last question. So, kind of staying in that vein as well.
Yeah.
Are there any programs that you guys are working on, like a path to ownership program for minority owners? So we want to see more minority owners in the soccer ranks, and we are seeing it across the board when it comes to grassroots level. We're seeing some in USL League One and whatnot. What's NISA doing to kind of help promote that a little bit more?
So you'll probably know that a number of our clubs either have fan ownership or some type of investors that are coming in.
Mm.
And it's the easiest way, it's the best way to get people comfortable with investing in our game and understand the complexities, because investing in a sport is not like investing in a widget manufacturer. There's a lot more to this.
Yeah.
And so Chicago or New Amsterdam are two great examples where they're bringing in a lot of different investors at different levels, and that will give them exposure to, all right, how do I get a bigger piece next time, right? Or once they understand. And so and to a lesser extent, I think, or maybe even the same extent, Chattanooga and Detroit City with their fan ownership, those fans get, although there's so many of them, but they do get exposure to how things are run. But the other model where they're actually investing some capital and they actually get a seat at the table really gives them some real exposure as to how to get there from here.
100%. Oh yeah, one more question. No, this kind of came up. You mentioned the importance of some to MLS and their growth and their exposure. Are we going to see like a NISA version of some type of like loose organization to kind of help bolster the league from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, we've been discussing that at the board level. Not sure when exactly we're going to do that, but we have been discussing it. It is something that's important to the league because it's not only for the media rights and for the sponsorship dollars that it brings, but also to be able to do that for other venues or events, right? And get that outside capital coming in. So it's important, yes.
All right, so that's it for my questions, but we'll go ahead and jump into one of our favorite games on the show here. It's a game called No Card, Yellow Card, Red Card. So this is a rapid fire game where I'll read off a news topic and you'll give your thoughts or opinion on that topic using the soccer card system. So no card is no card is I'm fine with it. I agree. Yellow card is I can go either way. And red card is I disagree, or I'm not fine with it, and kind of give like an explanation of why you gave that rating. So I only have one this week. I'll get right into it. No card, yellow card, red card. NWSL fined Chicago Red Stars coach and Gotham FC's GM for speaking out in criticism about how the league handled an incident of racial prejudice against Sarah Gordon and her family members. So what card are you giving the league for their response to this criticism?
Oh boy, you're really trying to get me in trouble here. I would say I would give it a red card. I don't agree. I think there has to be some discipline, within the organizations, that you kind of are singing the same tune. But if the league misses an opportunity to do something, I think the club has the right to call them out on it. That will never happen in NISA, I will tell you, because everybody loves me so much they would never call me out on publicly. but anyway, yeah. So that was it's an all these situations are unfortunate when they happen.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know that NISA has a much better policy when it comes to that. So
yeah, we'll see.
So that's it for no card, yellow card, red card.
Okay.
Now I'll move into our Black soccer history for this week. So we'll be giving Desiree Ellis her flowers. Desiree Ellis is a retired South African women's footballer and current coach of the South African women's national football team. She is a founding member of the South Africa women's national football team and the second captain of the national team. She was awarded Confederation of African Football Women's Coach of the Year in 2018 after her team finished second place in the African World Cup of Nations and qualified for the Women's World Cup for the first time. So we want to salute Coach Ellis for blazing trails for women in South Africa football and for what she does for the game as a whole.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
So that's it for this week. John, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. Where can the people find you if you're on social media?
I'm not on social media.
Smart
I
man.
can't take the heat or the hate.
No, you're a very smart man. I almost wish I could disappear from social media, but business calls. So I guess we can plug NISA. So at NISA on social media. So that's it for the show. Subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us get discovered. Follow us on the socials at 2Cents FC. Check out the merch in our merch shop at 2centsports.shop. It helps support the show as well as the network. Tweet us your comments about the show. Let us know your thoughts, any discussion pieces, and
buy tickets in Chattanooga for a game.
Yes, definitely buy tickets.
Or watch the game would be in. How about that?
Buy membership to the nearest NISA club near you. Help support this league. They're trying to grow independent soccer, and something we love to see. So, till next week. Catch you guys later.
Thanks. Take care.